Chlorine is added to most water supplies, and certainly in North America. It's the front line of defense against microorganisms, and we'll discuss that there are other forms of chlorine used now. But chlorine, the next category of contaminants is probably, I consider, the or one of the most serious that the average American is faced with. And this category is called disinfection byproducts, and it's also a very new category, probably less than, and been addressed for less than 20 years.
And I just want
And
to, Robert, I just want to alert the listeners that this is really the key point, and this to listen very carefully, because this is, for the most part, going to be new information for most people listening to this audio, and understanding the importance of this is quite profound, because if you miss this, you're going to be unable to get through the marketing deception that is out there, and you're not going to be able to select a process that's going to serve you and your family well.
these disinfection byproducts are almost, it's a very descriptive term, because they exist as a result of disinfecting the water with the most common chemicals, typically chlorine. And what happens, and what they didn't realize for nearly a century, was that these disinfectants, such as chlorine, chemically react with natural organic matter in the water. Now, this natural organic matter in the water typically comes from just the vegetation, and the water has passed through the ground, and it's flowing in a stream, and leaves fall in it, and grass gets in it, and it decays and releases these or otherwise harmless chemicals known typically as humic and fulvic acid, and which sometimes are even used in the health field to foster some health problem. But when the reaction between the chlorine and the fulvic and humic acids occur, and these are called as a group natural organic matter, a reaction takes place, and it's not a very friendly reaction. This reaction takes place, and it creates a list of chemicals, organic in nature, and they are quite carcinogenic. It's very unfortunate that this happens, but it is the reality. Now, the categories of these things are, the most prevalent category are called the trihalomethanes. And the trihalomethanes are a group of chemicals that they're called total trihalomethanes because there's not just one of them, often just written as THMs, are not only carcinogenic but also extremely difficult to remove from the water supply. And a second category that results from these reactions is called haloacetic acids, which is often listed as HAAs. And then there are singular chemicals, chlorites and bromates, that also fit into the disinfection byproduct category. Now, this disinfection byproduct is not an acute problem like the bacteria, where you might drink contaminated water that has some protozoa in it, and within 2 days to 2 weeks you are coming down with diarrhea and vomiting and many gastrointestinal problems. This is something that you can drink for years, decades, possibly 80 years, and the effects won't manifest themselves in a significant percentage of the population. But there is a percentage that is going to contract cancer from the constant exposure of these.
So in some ways, it's not too different than smoking cigarettes or cell phone exposure.
Great analogy. And the exposure, unfortunately, is a three-pronged exposure, because we normally think of, okay, drinking water. If I drink this water, then I'm going to be at risk to get cancer in 30 or 40 years. But this exposure is enhanced by the fact that there are three routes of entry for these contaminants. And one is the drinking route, one is the skin contact route, and one is the inhalation route. So when you're taking a shower or taking a bath, you have these trihalomethanes and haloacetic acids in the water. You are getting exposed, and they are putting a dose of the chemical in your body, and it further increases the risk of these chemicals.
And can you give us a perspective too? How much more toxic are these disinfection byproducts relative to chlorine?
From a health standpoint, I think it could range anywhere from thousands to an infinite amount, because the researchers and the Environmental Protection Agency really don't consider chlorine toxic at all. And they consider they consider the toxicity of disinfection byproducts as a very serious concern, and limit it in the water supply to just parts per billion range. Okay, this is parts per billion. So you can see that a water supply contains parts per million, but in disinfection byproducts, they don't want to see anything more than parts per billion, which is 1,000 times less.
1,000-fold difference. So at a minimum, ideally, we should never be exposed to these at all, because any exposure is potentially toxic. But at a minimum, they're 1,000 times more toxic than chlorine. By conservative,
at a minimum.
Yeah, by conservative.
At a minimum.
Okay.
Now, and also, just to let you know, the maximum contaminant level goal, which I spoke about earlier, is like, this is what we wish we could do, but we can't, for trihalomethanes is 0. Mm-hmm. There is no safe level. So you're looking at something that the trihalomethanes are also related to liver and kidney and nervous system problems, in addition to the carcinogenic issue. So, and the haloacetic acids, the HAAs, are primarily related to increased risk of cancer.